Hey, what's going on, people? Just having a wee boogie, trying to keep warm. It is freezing just prior to the break there. A couple of cool heaters for the cold winter months. Kiwi boys, state of mind, city on fire. I tell you what, I could do with a wee bit of that fire right about now because it is chilly. And before that, Basscliff and Anthony Paul with Helium. Now, if New Zealand music had a monarchy, the man that I interviewed earlier on in the week would be a king. He's been spinning tunes since yonks ago and produces a few club bangers, if I may say so myself. I caught up with the legendary Churchill earlier on in the week. Let's find out more right about now. Alright people, what's going on? I'm sitting here with Kiwi production DJ Dynamo, Mr. Greg Churchill. How are you doing, mate?
I'm fine, Karn.
Thank you very much for joining us here at the Bex List.
Thanks for asking me along on the final instalment.
It is the final installment, our final interview piece here. Now, you've been in the DJ game longer than most here in New Zealand. How is it that you got into it, and am I right in my assumption that you began in the 80s?
Yeah, I just fell into the game as such purely by accident, merely because I felt I had better records than everyone else way back then, and because no one was playing the music I wanted to go out and hear every weekend, and people started asking us to come along and play their parties, and eventually we got to the, there was a group of us, there's the three of us, and then it just became Glenn and myself. We decided we'd start a regular night in Christchurch. This is like January 1989, and we'd been doing this for a good 5 to 6 years prior to this, and we got offered a Tuesday night at one of the sort of major clubs there. It was pretty mainstream, but it was still a place that we went to regularly because it was really the only other place that offered even a hint or a tinge of the music we wanted to dance to. And you know, they said, well, you can do a Tuesday night, laughing at us, and we were like, okay. And we sort of managed to, you know, be pulling in 600 people then on a Tuesday night in Christchurch, and it really just took off from there.
And so what sort of sounds were you playing back then, obviously being the late 80s? What sort of sounds were current and what were you rocking?
Well, what really was the catalyst for us to go, like, we want to do this on a regular basis, was the whole acid house explosion that it really happened the year before in the UK. You had that first Summer of Love in 1988, and then the second was, you know, UK summer '89. So we were like, you know, we got all this great music. All this music was streaming out of the US, as well as there was a huge wave of all that new school hip hop as well. And because, you know, to run a night for 8 hours, there actually wasn't the quantity of music that we have the luxury of having and owning now. It was just kind of the perfect sort of mix as well. And we sort of played lots of other things, lots of sort of funk. We'd play Michael Jackson and Prince and sort of Afro-style tracks, and just kind of, we were kind of really unaware and I suppose really naive about the whole idea of putting a set together. We just had the music and the enthusiasm and pretty much ran with it. Like, we didn't really click onto the whole beat matching thing probably to about 3 or 4 months, you know, after this point, and to think that prior to that we'd been doing this for 5 or 6 years, just turning up at parties or in club one-off gigs and orientations, and just playing the tracks one after the other. So
you've got a few accolades to your name. You've won DJ awards, and you're a very well-respected DJ in New Zealand and around the world. Also a producer of music. How did you get into producing music, and like, what was the inspiration behind it?
There's sort of lots of stories with the production. I started dabbling. I used to play saxophone, you know, around the same time I was DJing actually, and I actually remember buying a Roland drum machine at the time because I really loved that Miles Davis album Tutu, and that was just an inspiration to, you know, play an instrument along with a drum machine at the same time, and buying a drum machine led to buying a sampler, and then there was just a really good crew of people in Christchurch, like-minded people. Hamish Clark, who's half of Breaks Co-op with Zane Lowe. We made tracks for years together and performed them around Christchurch with a number of you know, sort of well-established people now, including Scribe's father, who was in a reggae band at the time, and there was just a lot of people sort of on a similar tip, and it all just sort of stemmed from there. And when I came to Auckland in '96, I hooked up with Simon Holloway. We just started doing remixing at the time of, you know, people like Jan Hellregal, True Bliss, and then I kind of went through a bit of a lull, and I'd written hundreds and hundreds of tracks, but never really, in a sense, finished them. And I don't know, there was just probably a point in time where I decided I would, and I'd already met Darren Emerson being on the Australian tour of Big Day Out. So I'd ended up spending 2 weeks travelling around with him, and I just sent him a bunch of tracks, and he liked them so much. And he was pretty brutal with me as well, but he liked enough of them to start releasing tracks for me on Underwater.
And Underwater's been a very good label. Darren Emerson, owner of a label called Underwater, it's been very pivotal for you in your career. Has it led on to other things for you?
Well, at the time, it was sort of hailed as the label. Like DJ Magazine did a huge cover spread as this was the label of the year, and it was a great time to become part of the team there. And there was only sort of a small number of artists actually on the roster, so you pretty much knew every 3 months you were going to be doing a release for them. And, you know, and Darren is sort of one of those DJs who is a dance figurehead along, you know, like Pete Tong, Carl Cox and Oakenfold, and Darren Emerson's name is always one that comes up there, you know, with Sasha and Digweed and co. So, you know, it was a pretty good road to jump on.
Cool as. Now, you're part of a dynamic DJ duo known as Oral Trash, yourself and Angela Fiskin. Tell us a little bit about how this project came about and what you guys have been getting up to of late and where it's going.
I'd sort of known Angela for years. She was just like best friends with Galen, my wife. But we'd always clicked, always got on, always had really similar tastes musically. She worked down at BPM with me as well, and what happened is after the demise of the BPM show on BFM, I sort of went through a period of just filling in for shows on a Friday night up there, and Dubstep up there turned around. Dubhead. Let me get that right. He turned around and offered me a Friday night permanent spot, and the problem was I was sort of touring so much on a Friday, I did need someone to assist me, and I just said to Angela, you know, do you want to be co-host with the show? And really it just just took off from there. Galen came up with the name Oral Trash. We were like, it was just that whole time that all that electro clash had just sort of come through, and we're both really excited by that whole sound, and you know, it was just kind of tongue-in-cheek, and really it just rolled from there. And Thane Kirby approached us at the New Zealand Music Awards and said, look, what will it take for you to come to George FM? And away we went, really, and it's just built, and we're just about to embark on I think our 7th year of touring, winter touring.
Man, best of luck with that. I'm sure it's going to go well for you guys.
Oh, it just seems to get bigger and better every year.
Lucky number 7. Are there any websites and like online services that people can check out to find out a little bit more about you and what you've got going on?
Just the typical Facebook.
So if they search Greg Churchill, Oral Trash?
That's all you have to do, yeah.
There you go, done and dusted. Well, best of luck for all the future projects. I'm looking forward to the album dropping. I'm sure some of you guys watching out there are as well. So best of luck for the future, Greg.
Likewise.
Thank you very much for joining us today. See you guys very soon.